You know what else I wanted to talk to you about is you sent me a thing about you sent me that buck, a picture of that buck.
Which one?
The Rompola buck.
Which one is that?
It's called the Rompola buck.
Was that the buck where the guy faked it?
Well,
no? Maybe.
I want to do a documentary on it, dude.
So let's explain that to people.
Yeah, no, I think I kept wanting to talk to you about it when I came on your show because it's such a fascinating story.
Yeah.
I'm like, so in 98, it was 98, maybe Jamie could pull up a picture of this deer. In 1998.
There it is.
Yeah, that's him. So it's a crazy story about this deer. Now, a little bit, so this takes place in Michigan in 1998. Now, the biggest white-tailed deer, the biggest typical white-tailed deer in the world is this deer called the Hansen buck, or Milo Hansen killed the biggest typical white-tailed deer in the world. Okay, I think the Hansen buck was the Milo Hansen buck was killed in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
There's the Milo Hansen buck.
There it is.
Man, that's a big buck.
Yep, Canada. When you look at these pictures, notice when you look at the Milo Hansen buck, you want to notice a couple things about it. When you look at all these giant bucks, you'll want to notice how the burrs are positioned on top of his head, like how much space is between those burrs. And you want to notice, like, on these giant bucks, the presence of little extra points and little points here and there and shit. So anyways, this guy Milo Hansen kills this in Canada. He kills this world record typical whitetail. We just had on our podcast the Huff buck, where a guy in Indiana just killed the biggest typical whitetail in the U.S., but he didn't beat the Hansen buck.
How big is the Huff buck?
I can't remember what the Huff buck was. It was 2+.
Ooh, look at the size of that thing.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't beat the Hansen buck. I'll talk about the Huff buck too, as I tell you about like controversy around the Huff buck that is like not there anymore, but controversy that emerged. So there's this guy, Mitch Rompola, is this Michigan bow hunter, and weirdly, like my old man knew Mitch Rompola because my dad used to measure bucks, and he would measure bucks for this place called Commemorative Bucks of Michigan, and Mitch Rompola was involved in Commemorative Bucks of Michigan. But one day I think it was mid-November, Mitch Rompola in Traverse City, Michigan, kills a buck that's going to beat, that clearly smokes the Hansen buck in size. Anytime something like that happens, there's like a lot of questions about, is it legit? Is it real? So one thing that becomes readily apparent is just the buck looks weird. Okay, like its antler configuration is weird. He calls some
When you
people,
say weird, what do you mean by that?
just a weird configuration. How absolutely perfect it is. How the burrs sit on its head. Notice how the burrs seem to be coming out the side of its head.
Yeah.
How it's tipped out. Okay?
Yeah.
So he gets this buck, and it's going to beat the Hansen buck. But there's a thing that he won't do. He won't let it be X-rayed. And
what does he say when they say we want to X-ray it?
Well, first off, he comes forward with the buck. He's a very private person. Okay, so everybody already knows he's a very private person. He comes forward with the buck, and it's more like everybody else is saying that this buck is going to beat the Hansen buck. And then all these theories start to emerge that he had fabricated the rack, that he had access to a deer farm. So he was able to make this perfect rack. And people are looking at the photo of the buck, and its ear droops funny. There's blood in weird places. The antlers seem to be not colored quite correctly. And there's this idea that he killed a buck, for real, cut open its hide on its head, took a fabricated buck rack on a skull plate and attached it.
Whoa.
However, a tribal game warden sees it at his house, doesn't see anything fishy about it, and some guys come to officially measure the buck, just like in the picture you saw. They officially measure the buck, but they never examine the skull plate. All those people say, that these eyewitnesses are like, I didn't see anything wrong with that buck. But he won't enter the buck into the record books, citing like a disagreement with the record books over some stuff. And he's like, and a lot of people kill deer and don't enter them in the record books. People are also looking, they're like, a big buck like that's never come out. There's no big bucks in Traverse City. Like, how's this guy kill this big buck where there's no big bucks? And people are like, yeah, but these giant bucks are freaks. Like, no, you don't kill multiple 200-inch whitetails in one spot. But you'd be like, well, you kill a bunch of 170s and 180s and 190s.
It does look weird.
Well, that's another one.
What's that one?
Well, that's where the story starts getting rich. So,
oh, no.
So check this out. Well, this is the reason I want to make a documentary about this. It's legitimately unsolved. Milo Hansen, the guy that has the Hansen buck, he makes a lot of money renting his buck out to buck shows. This is no joke, dude. Like, like you'll have like trade shows, not trade shows, but like public sporting goods shows, gun shows, state sporting goods shows, whatever. The people that organize it will pay to have the Hansen buck on display. But suddenly the Hansen buck isn't a hot ticket commodity anymore because everyone knows that the Rompola buck beat the Hansen buck. So now he's seeing his rentals go down because, like, you're not the biggest buck. We can't get the biggest buck because he doesn't want to show anybody, but you're not the biggest buck. They go to Rompola and they have a non-monetary settlement. And Mitch Rompola, under threat of lawsuit, Mitch Rompola agrees in a non-monetary settlement that he will stop saying his buck is bigger than the Hansen buck. Why would you do that? Then people are like, just get the buck x-rayed. Just get it x-rayed. Two individuals in Michigan come forward and say, I'll give you $10,000 to let me x-ray that buck. He wouldn't take the money. Then he says, and a lot of his friends think that this is like his legitimate response and this makes total sense. Then he says, fuck it. I'm not showing anyone the fucking buck. I'm done talking about it. Not why I hunt. I don't want to talk about it. Some years go by and it's put to rest sort of by someone saying it burned up in a house fire anyway. A lot of his friends are like, dude, that's totally a Mitch move. That's what Mitch would do. People also like try to make a big deal out of a criminal record he had to demonstrate dishonesty. But here's the other thing is he then establishes a website and in the following years, weirdly, posts like the picture you just pulled up, posts a bunch more bucks that have the same look. What? That super wide, crazy look. And the website's now gone. But he then, over the course of years, keeps shooting these crazy looking bucks, which no one else in Traverse City is killing. And then, but he says, but that's not why I hunt. And people are like, if that's not why you hunt, why do you still have the website with all these crazy bucks that look like homemade bucks?